So your question was what inspired the song?
Yes.
Often when I write, I'm sitting around noodling or walking around playing the guitar and kind of making nonsense syllables and working with melodies, and then a melody might play off of some chord progressions, and so that's just typical. And then something will hit, and I'll like that, and I'll pursue it. And with this one, the first verse came out exactly the way it did. I had a dream the other night that I was dreaming about daylight. I know the day is going to come. I didn't know what was coming next as I was singing it. It was just there. And it sat in my phone for a couple of years easily. And then I'm in a songwriting group, and our assignment, which we can do or not do, was to take an old song or an unfinished song and finish it or rewrite it. And I thought, so I was looking through my phone trying to see what ideas I had, and I listened to this one, and I thought, oh yeah, I like that one. And so I just went with it. And of course, we've been in this group talking about so many things. I just had read a section in Course in Miracles about the borderland, and just some other concepts and things we talk about in here. And they just sort of all found their way somewhere into the song. Joe Dispenza, the unified field and the infinite possibility, and just these things were there, and they kind of, it seemed like there was enough room in the song to not necessarily follow a line from point A to point B, but just kind of pull things in. And then the chorus, I thought, unified everything from there. It's a different kind of song than I've ever written before. But
yeah, very good. And it's not a line from point A to point B. It's this giant, it's all these different points hitting at once from different angles, which I thought. I mean, I've got 75 notes here.
75?
Yeah, in fact, I was going to say, 'cause you say, you said, I was going to say, I kept thinking of Course in Miracles during this. Multiple times I actually thought of it. And some lines from Miracles that I'm like, I was curious if that was in your head or did it just come through you. Like wait, that's from Miracles, or it just shows up in you, right? It's not you were trying to get a line in.
Yeah, it shows up. And to your question, I don't know, you made a comment, but I heard it as kind of a question, and I frequently discover layers of a song weeks, months, years after it gets written. And I don't always know what's going on. I know I have a pretty good idea what I think I'm doing in a song, but then it reveals itself over time to be often, more than I thought it was. So this hasn't lasted long enough yet for me to know that.
Yeah, it was just even from recent groups, just things, certain lines. I didn't read the lyrics yet, but just listening to you, and especially the couple that were really standing out. So much within, I'll meet you on the other side. Rumi, we talk about that a lot. But also, when you were saying the fire within, I'd have to read the line, is burning. I was thinking about fermentation. I was thinking about our whole process of alchemy that we've been discussing, and how burning through these repetitive cycles of ourselves, that struck me. And the two-door and the border I was taking as the two-door, the choice that we're all making, not just at once in life, but many times. And your life's never the same, whichever path you go, I don't know, it's just, those are just some little boom, booms, but a lot of it, again, from group discussion.
And the thread of light through all of it, just your first line about dreaming about daylight, and then there's touching on that, that light sort of seems like it unified. It's crazy how you say how it was written over time, because when I'm listening to it, it just feels like it's something that just all came, at one time. It evokes that emotion in that way.
And the darkness, dreaming about light sometimes, like for my own self, again, we can only see it through our own lens, of sometimes you are dreaming about light because it's a little dark, but it's there. So yeah, beautiful. It was very moving.
This is interesting to hear.
Yeah.
Well, sometimes it's funny because you guys know I've interpreted songs for you before. I got some on the YouTube channel and all that, but Kristen will ask me, is that what they were thinking, or is it just you reading into it again, right? And sometimes, like, listen to this, I'm like, oh, this is exactly what he had to have been thinking. But that's just me always looking at it. That's just the way I look at it, of course. But I am curious.
You can't quantize. You quantize everything.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Like
Right.
he can't not do
Is that
that.
a word?
It is now.
Quantize it. Boom. Yes, I do that, but that's at a certain point. Once you speak English, you can't not stop. It's hard to stop speaking English. Once you quantize, once you see it a certain kind of way, then you see everything like that, right? Just that's sort of what nuance is about, right? And so it's hard for me not to, but I'm eager to go through some of this because I'm like, well, surely David was thinking that, but because you hit on several points, like I wrote Rumi down several times, like Course in Miracles, of course, was in there as well.
I'll be curious to hear about the Rumi stuff.
Yeah. Okay. Good. And so you weren't aware of the Rumi line.
I didn't think for a second about a Rumi line, at least not knowing it was a Rumi line.
Yeah, well, meet in the unified field is exactly what that is. So do you remember the line?
Yeah, I'll meet you, there's a place.
Yeah.
Beyond right
Beyond
doing and wrongdoing.
wrongdoing,
There's a
yeah.
field. I'll meet you there.
Oh,
Yeah, good. Your song's even better than you think.
I wonder if that was just lurking around back
I'm
there
sure
somewhere.
it was.
Huh,
It was.
interesting. Wow.
Talk
Yeah.
about
Well, that's also
Yeah,
what.
I remember that now.
Yeah, that's right. But it's also what the infinite river is, the stream of consciousness flowing through you.
Through everything.
Well, I thought that was pretty wide open. I didn't try to force it too much. It just felt right.
Well, and in the unity aspect is if we do interpret it similarly, like you said, there can just be a feeling that's sufficient, of course. But if there's something that goes, yeah, that's what I was thinking of it, that's certainly unity. But it certainly doesn't mean that we're all going to think of it the same way. We can still knit it all together in the concept of just love, big enough. But it's going to come from a lot of different angles. I thought you were waving.
Oh no, but I can go. I love the line, there are no strangers where everything's revealed. I think that's already unifying there, but I think one of my favorite sort of concepts about this song is how we're going back and forth between this lifetime and the other side, and then you weave us back into this, like the entire song we're going back and forth, and I think that flow is really, really cool. I love that.
When you say this lifetime, where were you saying?
Like here, here where we're in the battle between love and fear, ego and spirit, that's in here. But then some of the time I think we're already deceased and we're on the other side. I mean, he talks about there are no strangers where everything's revealed. Everything's not revealed until we pass, when we're in a full state of spirit. And so I just feel like there's this sort of this dance between dealing with what we deal with here and then experiencing what we dream of experiencing.
Well, it's the duality.
on the other side. Yeah.
That's exactly right. Duality.
And
unity.
that's what I heard. I don't know if that was the intention, but I was kind of in back and forth between that space and this space.
It's kind of cool because it's in your chords too, from those minor chords, that somber feel to then the chorus. Do you know
Yeah,
what I
the
mean? When you
borderline.
said that right now, I
Yeah.
just realized, that's how the music flows, kind of.
Yeah.
Deep.
That was a goosebumpy thing there.
Yeah.
That's good.
Get it.
I don't understand the musical part of it, but I got what you were saying.
Interesting.
Is that what the borderline is to you? The borderline?
Borderland?
The borderland, yeah, when you're referring to?
I was having trouble remembering what it says in the chorus, but my memory is, and I don't know, again, if this is what the chorus was saying, but I've for a long time seen songs that I work on as kind of the interface between flesh and spirit. And that's what the borderland seemed to be described as. Like we're here, we're physical, yet we're right there at the same time, connected to what's not purely physical. And we sort of know that, and we sort of don't know that. And there are things that become clear from time to time, and other things that are never clear until maybe someday. Presumably they will be, I don't know. But that's the struggle and the mystery and maybe the suffering and
And the gift.
the gift. Yeah.
You said you don't know, but you ended the song with "I know the day is gonna come." Yes, you know. That's also, like I say, my favorite of all spiritual advices that were given is when Jesus says, "Seek and you will find," and he doesn't equivocate. like some of you will find, or you might find, or whatever. It's seek and you will find. And that's a huge part of this in our experience. Oh no, it's gonna happen. That's one of the things I loved about this song, the certainty of, despite all of the ebb and flow and the back and forth and the duality and all of that, you emphasize that very much, that, oh no, that's gonna happen. I know the day is gonna come.
I guess it says it 3 times.
It does,
at the end, doesn't
it does.
Yeah.
But as soon as you shift out of the zone, you go back to the, into the inner back and flow. But no, that's exactly right. And all of this, okay, I personally, what jumped out at me was Psalm 23. Psalm 23, anyone? This is the fear no evil verse in the Bible. And the line in particular was that, he leads me beside still waters. And that's exactly what I thought this song was about. What I like about Psalm 23 is, again, it's certainty that it's going to happen. You are going to lay down in green pastures. You're going to lay beside still waters. And what are those references? Does anybody remember the references? What are still waters? Or what's a green pasture? Yeah, say it.
What?
Yeah, still waters. Water being a metaphor for thought and emotion. That's why Noah's Ark and the overwhelm of all that is about our experience of thought and emotion. Anyone ever get overwhelmed before? Mm-hmm. Well, then you understand Noah's Ark. But the still waters is exactly right. It's the inner stillness that we have in our thought and our emotion. And what's green pastures? Who knows the color of the colors of the chakras?
The heart.
Green.
Yeah, green.
Love.
Love and peace.
Right, that's the green chakra right there. And so you're going to be laying, not in fields and meadows next to cows, maybe, but that's not what spirituality is about. You're gonna have a green chakra experience, and you're gonna have still waters. And that's the certainty of this song.
Well, it's interesting because it seemed right, like it needed to be certain.
Mm-hmm.
Yet the flesh part of me, I'm not so sure.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I know it's like
I'll go with it, but yeah.
Yeah, definitely. To speak about this stuff, like, as a speaker and putting stuff on videos, and then I go home and I forget it fast, and I'm like, wait, what was I just talking about? Fearing no evil, But yeah, that's the infinite river. The infinite river that we all share, that we're all in together. Remember at the beginning of New Eyes, I have that, all you need to know is in the nursery rhyme, row, row, row your boat. How are you supposed to row it? Gently down the what? Stream. It's a stream of consciousness, and we're in that river together. It's all of us floating through the stream of consciousness, through the field, the unified field. And beyond right doing and wrong doing, the whole idea is like we're all in this stream, whether you know it or not, and what we're arguing about is like, but you did this or you did that, and this is right and that's wrong, and no, actually the truth is we're already all already past that. That's how the song definitely spoke to me like that. Infinite river, nothing concealed. Jesus talks about how I will not hold it back any secrets from you. The Buddha says you're also Buddha. The fact is that enlightenment can come to everyone. There's nothing that won't be revealed. There's plenty of scripture on that. And that's a sacred flow. Such beautiful, it's so poetic. The sacred flow is what it is. It reminds me immediately of a lot of Krishna and the Gita. The sacredness of all of this. In spite of the difficulties, it's sacred. And if we would just join together in our adversities and support each other in a oneness way, as opposed to thinking that we're the only ones that are suffering. If there's anything that comes out of doing the alchemy, it's like, it's all of our process, all of us. No one escapes this. It's why it's fair. And so that's a sacred flow through the unified field, which is where we're going to find the challenges. It's the superposition of things. It's literally the unified field. It's all of that too. You mentioned Dispenza, exactly right. The idea of what this field is it's really the stuff that we can't see, but we can perceive. You said that in there too. I can't see it. But it's there, and it speaks to us, and it's calling us out. It's calling us back home. It's challenging us. It's doing all those things. And that's just the first paragraph. I've got a lot more. But anybody else before I continue?
Yeah, I'm always curious about what stands out or what questions you have. Like you hear something the first time and something will stand out, probably. And you don't have to know why, but I'm just curious what it is.
Yeah.
I think for me, the line of when the lion and the lamb will rest together, when you said that, it made me think of, like, especially now, how people are arguing so much. And, like, when you said that, I kind of had the vision of unity. And it actually, I had tears come to my eyes. Like it moved me so much to have that feeling of unity and where people set aside their differences and connect and rest together. So that moved me.
That's great, that's great.
And what are the lion and the lamb? Other than nice metaphors. I heard that. Would you start to say that there? What's that?
The Christ and the eagle.
Yeah, exactly right. Now, which is which?
The lamb is the Christ.
Now, generally speaking, but I like masculine and feminine here, which goes both ways, anyways. You know, and there's no reason to say one, is better than the other. Of course, it isn't. It's total equality. And so, generally speaking, the lamb is the piece of the Christ. But if you can't be the lion sometimes, you need that as well. But certainly, I thought of it the way you said it initially. But it goes back and forth. And it is, to me, ultimately, it's feminine and masculine coming together. And they're going to be, again, that day will come. You didn't say, maybe. Or for some people, no, that day will come. And rest together. Isn't that great? And that is, alchemy is all about the coagulation, is the getting the feminine and the masculine in us back together in this form. And it's going to happen.
Straight, I forget which Old Testament chapter it is. I want to say Jeremiah. I have no idea. I can't remember now. But that's pretty much a quote straight out of it.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, lots of good lion and lamb references for sure. But they do work together. Light and dark work together. Left and right works together. It always does. And that's the part that we have to trust, even though life is difficult sometimes. We got to trust that there's some sort of all things working together for good for those who love God. That's in here too. Romans 8:28. That works quite nicely, right? And
I was just going to say, I don't know whether didn't know whether to say this now or later, but my discovery after the fact was that the lion and the lamb are within myself.
I was gonna ask you that, if there was any kind of, the internal, I hate to say battle, but like a lion being fierce and a lamb being more gentle. And I also popped in my mind as you guys were just talking right now about a sacrificial lamb, because once the flesh is gone, I don't know why I got a vision of that. I got a vision of the sacrifice of the physical aspect of the lamb and the meeting on the other side. But was that the lion and lamb internal does a lion represent like anger or courage, or what is that for you?
I didn't think of it in terms of representing anything except something very different from the lamb. And for the two of them to rest together, especially by the waterside, which I suppose could be samadhi like that.
Yeah.
that was gonna be the last thing that I said.
Oh, all right.
All right. I was hoping someone brought that up. Believe me, it's in the frame. I have it in the frame. I'm like, it's above his head. The lake, it's above his head. Well done. So yeah, good job.
I like when we're sort of going back and forth between the two, the openness, like of a dream of forgiveness is wanting to be clear. Like there's just an openness for allowing that versus staying in that internal conflict. And I think that's just a neat thing to permit, because it says, I feel a dream of forgiveness drawing near. Just to permit that in this lifetime is such a releasing process. And then you go straight into the chorus. I think that's a really nice sort of transition, allowing while we're here that forgiveness so that we can experience lion, but yet allow the lamb to be present now too. I like that openness.
And that dream of forgiveness is straight up Course in Miracles, right? And the fact is, it's one of the greatest concepts I remember in my life. I just remember the lightning bolt of truth I felt when I read that. To understand forgiveness for real is not the superiority dance of you did something bad and I'm going to forgive you. That's still ego. You're bad, I'm good, I'm going to forgive you. To forgive is to know that nothing wrong was ever done in the first place, because this is just a dream. The whole idea of bringing us back to spirit is to realize that we're all ignorant, we're all screwed up sinners, right? And we make mistakes, and most of our mistakes is relative to our upbringing and where we were born and what opportunities we had, right? And what we were taught and all that kind of stuff. So forgive them, they know not what they do is really important. And so it's a dream of forgiveness because we're in the illusion. That's straight up. How many times does it say illusions in Course in Miracles, right? It's all throughout that book. And the whole book is about forgiveness. So the idea ultimately is in order to get out of the dream, to wake up from the dream, you have to forgive.
And,
So,
and of course it talks about the dream is not necessary, that forgiveness doesn't need to be a dream, but in our form here, it's a useful concept nevertheless,
Right, yeah.
because we're not there yet. I mean, we're still
That's right.
in this form.
We're going back and forth in duality. And that reminds me again, who remembers why God doesn't forgive? Do you remember? Anybody remember this one? Have I not? I don't even remember where I got it. Maybe it's from Miracle. Why God doesn't forgive? And I love doing this with Christians.
Well, I would imagine he doesn't forget because he's never really angry.
Exactly right. Exactly. And if I say that, I've done this with Christians, I say, God doesn't forgive you. What? Of course he does. Nope, he doesn't forgive you. And in 5 seconds, you're going to agree with me. No way. I'm like, okay. How do you forgive someone you're not mad at? So again, that's why the dream of forgiveness is so good, because forgiveness is something we need. Jesus and everything that he did taught us how to forgive with each other. But if we'd started out as God in the first place, or remembered that we were God in the first place, then we wouldn't need forgiveness now, would we? Because we'd know it was just a dream. So yes, I love the imagery of that. And I put Course in Miracles right on that too.
When you sang those lines, I honestly, after the fact, you discussed how you wrote it over time, but would have been 2 groups ago, because I wasn't here last week, when you were talking about a lot of those things that you were dealing with. I think you were talking about the mouses. That's what it made me think of when you were, immediately I went to that, just because you were saying it.
So it's personal.
It had that tone
It's
to
all
me,
there.
like
That's right.
Yeah, my hope is that, I mean, we're talking about a lot of things in terms of Course in Miracles or the Bible or Buddha or whatever, and I like to think that the song would stand up by itself without any background in any of those things.
I think so.
I do.
Definitely.
Because it's not, I was afraid we'd come in here, we'd say, oh, I get it now, this is about, and then we'd identify the source and go, there's the answer.
Well, I'm going to quantize everything.
Yeah, I don't have access in my brain to sources the way like the rest of you do, so I didn't get any of the sources, just like the experience of the song and the interpretation. Because I can't, in my brain, I'm like, oh, that's that Bible verse, or that's that, or that. I don't do that. So it was a very experiential interpretation. But I'm kind of curious, you're hearing everybody's interpretations. Like, how does that resonate with your intention for the song, or your story with the song?
Well, if people had said, oh, this is obviously a song about, going on a shooting spree and killing people, I'd say they missed something. But I think I heard a poet describe it as leaving some holes in a piece. Just there's room for a range of interpretations. Another way I heard it described was you have a personal, there's kind of your own personal associational magic with a piece of literature, a piece of art. They're things that they're not right or wrong, they're just what you bring to it. And then there's an author's intention, which is the beginning of the art form itself, and then the artist has to let it go, because what are they going to do? Follow it around and explain it to everybody? So I think it's important to have something that points a direction of some sort, whether it's emotional or conceptual or both or more. But then all the personal stuff happens. It gets attached to it, and I think that's wonderful. So.
You just stated relatively perfectly, meaning relativity, which we all have different experiences of it. That's the ultimate truth, is we're all experiencing ultimate truth from different angles. And it's why we're all just walking each other home, right? And why we're all on the same team and all that. You're going to have your experience of it, I'm going to have mine. And that's the Kalama Sutta. That's the Buddha's first teaching, which you just stated, by the way, if you didn't know that. And that is, and for you to allow us to have it just goes without saying. But then why don't we do that with others when it comes to the diversity of things? Why don't we just allow others to be?
To have their interpretation.
To have their interpretation of it.
We are how
Just like
God
right
experiences itself. And God doesn't get the complete experience of anything from just one angle. God needs an infinite number of angles, hence every single person on this planet brings their own angle to the equation, filling out the entire thing.
You got it.
That's kind of how it is.
Yeah, so every voice is valuable in that regard. But remember, every voice is valuable. Not just those of our friends, like Jesus says, and we have to embrace the enemy as well. And people whose perspectives we disagree with, it's okay, because your job is, in the end, it's going to work out. That's important. And this line, which I love, there are no strangers where everything is revealed. You had mentioned that as well. That's the costume party. It's also in Corinthians, we see in a mirror dimly, but then face to face. I mean, straight up, right now, the dim mirror is like, wait a minute, am I looking at another Buddha? Am I looking at God as well? The answer is yes, we are doing that. But we have all these costumes in the way, because the flesh costume's here. The flesh, which Jesus says counts for nothing, once that's removed, either because of death, then when we go back home and go in that field where Rumi's talking about, that unified field, it's like, oh, that's right. Here this whole time I thought you were, this physical neighbor of mine or whatever, but truly you're just another form of spirit. But we don't have to wait till death. That's the whole point of Jesus coming here anyways, is to help us get that right now. Is that if I look at you and I see the God in you, namaste, I love that, do that right now, I can be free right now, and same thing. And so everything is revealed. I know there's a line, some teacher at some point, maybe it's in scripture, I don't know. It does no harm to a mystery to understand a little bit about it. Because we still have to walk our way through it. Just because someone, straight up, is my favorite question. Why didn't the prophets make it more simple? I'm like, they did. Know ye not your gods? What's more simple than that? But it's hard to embrace, right?
Right.
Do you really believe that you're a piece of God? Do you believe that? Not really. Most people don't, especially if we get taught religion wrong. Do you know that you're a Buddha as well? And that the prophets put us on their level and said things like, greater works than these you can do? Most people go, no. I'm not as good as Jesus. I'm like, you said you are. You're equals. Right? So that's hard. It's hard for us to embrace, but it doesn't mean it's any less true. So we walk through all of the various steps, and just because we can point out, oh, you're in fermentation, you're still in the separation phase. Does that ruin the mystery? No. And yet, do you need to know any of this? No. It's to your point. You don't have to have any. You don't have to break it down and quantize it like I like to, or you don't need to know that at all. I mean, you don't need to understand what's under the hood of the car in order to drive it, do you? See, because it's love that speaks to all of us. That's that. My dogs wouldn't understand this, but they're better at it than I am anyways. Okay? They don't need to break it down like that. Nature's like this automatically. And so that's also the infinite river. It's everything else. Now, if you happen to be like me and you like to look under the hood of the car, then it's super fun. But it's also helpful to recognize and identify where you're at in the part of the process. That's what alchemy. That's why the prophets do it, so that we can go, oh, I can relate to that. And we could all relate to this song.
It's the report, it's the making sense of the parables, and the parables make you read slower. They make you think, they make you put your own perspective in and look at yourself and look at how others, and as Drew was saying, every little piece of the puzzle, some people need to quantify and teach us from that level, and other people need to just add their energy to it, and it's all equal and nothing's better or worse. But I think it's like it's just a beautiful thing when an artist just lets it, like you're amused for it, like you said at the beginning of the song, just comes and flows. Like you look at that line and then boom, it's there. That's what I admire in like musicians and people who can make a physical piece of art out of something that's flowing through them.
Yeah, I sometimes believe all of second grade should just be art class. We should do a lot more time in the arts for many different reasons so that we can express this stuff. But there are plenty of people that can do it through math, and so we all have our different ways of doing it for sure. But yeah, it's a special thing when artists can pull that off like that.
David, you said that you started this a couple of years ago. At that time, had there been a loss of someone from the physical to the spiritual? Or do you remember?
I can't think of anybody right off.
I was just curious.
No.
Although that's still in you. Again, that's the
Oh,
process.
yeah.
That's still there, whether it's an echo from the past or something
Right.
or future. But this is why it's so good to do this kind of stuff, because it's so therapeutic. I cannot hear you, I cannot see, but I feel your fire as it burns through me. So it doesn't, I thought immediately of the still small voice. Is that 1 Kings, I think? The whole idea of that, yep, sure enough, we have that little voice inside of us, which is the same thing Morpheus says in the Matrix, that there's a splinter in your mind driving you mad. Now he says it in a different context, but it's the same thing. The idea, Divine Sparks, that each of us had a little piece of God placed inside of us, guess what? That's yapping in your ear your whole life. But it's this quiet voice. And in the book of Living and Dying, it says we rarely attend to that voice. In fact, many times when we do religion, we're not listening to that voice at all. We're going to all the dogma of things. And yet, that still small voice is there. And it's a splinter in your mind driving you mad until you expose it and express it. Apostle Paul says the mystery is Christ was within. Well, that blows the mystery, doesn't it? Paul told us the mystery. Christ is in you. Well, you sang it. And Christ is that voice. I can't hear you, I can't see. I mean, not in the physical, but yeah, sure enough, you know that it's there and it's calling out, right? And that fire is healing you. That gives me chills, because that's exactly right. The more you bring that into you, that specific type of fire, that's Christ consciousness. As you bring that into you and you let the Spirit flow through you, it does heal you. It might heal your physical body. It surely helps things with like blood pressure for sure. My joke, it doesn't help me regrow my hair, but it can help with a lot of our physicality. But what it's done is it restored your soul. Back to Psalm 23. Your soul is now restored. That's also, these phases in here. When you get restored, distillation, when your soul is restored, you've now remembered you're a spiritual being.
Well, I noticed that you were talking about you can't regrow your hair, and the next line is glimmer of light.
Okay, cut.
Couldn't pass that up.
Were the two doors representative of anything in specific for you? Or just
all the time, every
choices,
day.
possibilities? Okay.
Well,
You know what? It reminds me a little bit of the Robert Frost poem, "The Road Not Taken." Because you can go through that poem all you want. You're never, as far as I've been through it many, 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 many times. You cannot figure out which road he actually takes.
Yeah.
Because I won't do a lesson on that right now. But
Road Less Traveled? Is that one?
is that the
Same
book?
thing.
The Road Not Taken is the poem. The Road Less Traveled is the book, I think.
Is it
That
by
was
his
written.
name?
It
Okay.
uses that line from the poem.
Okay.
But anyway, so what was my point? Yeah, but I wish I could remember the last line of the poem. It's, and I took the one less traveled by, and that has made all the difference.
Right.
So whichever one it was, and if you think you can figure it out, great, but whichever one it is, it will make all the difference. It's an inarguable point, fact. So that's sort of what was, I think, lurking around in the background. It just showed up as I was thinking about the Matrix too.
Mm-hmm.
But those were just sort of there as, oh yeah, that sort of reminds me of this, but it felt like it came first as the lyrics. What's that?
Red pill, blue pill.
Yeah, right.
Right. And whichever one you take, it's going to give you an experience, that's for sure.
But I think
That-
it's neat how each one was calling. Like, each one calls my name. So there was an appeal to, it didn't matter, there was an appeal to whichever choice is made.
So the Tibetan Book of the Dead literally describes the pre-birth process as choosing various doors, and I don't know if you know that, but there's various doors, but choosing life circumstances based upon what you want to experience and what's coming next, including what you think you need for your ultimate spiritual development. And so if you need to come down here and choose a specific door, which to me it's obvious, there's the ego door and there's the spirit door, okay? Each one of them, imagine before you come into this world, both of those, red pill, blue pill, is going to give you a very specific experience. You can also jump back and forth between them, I'm in a red pill today, blue pill tomorrow, whatever. But once you've tasted that red pill, which is ultimately the spirit pill, the awakening pill, it becomes your primary addiction. But all of us choose the blue pill. Why? Because the illusion, as Einstein says up there, is so persistent. I mean, who doesn't choose the blue pill? Who doesn't choose the ego for a while? Who doesn't get wrapped up in their physicality because it seems so obvious? What 2-year-old has the understanding and the awareness? You know what? We're spiritual beings. I'm not going to identify as this physical being. It can't be done. And so they absolutely, 2 doors are there. Each one calls her name. We've done the soul name thing in here enough. So you have the physical experience and your spiritual experience. It's beautiful. That was one of my favorite lines. All right, any closing thoughts, anyone?
I just like how David spoke to that those two doors are there all day, every day. And you know, the road less traveled, yeah, we take the blue pill because it's less traveled and everyone else is taking that. And then when you taste the red pill, you know, or vice versa, I don't know the which one is which in the movie, but the spirit and the spirit and the flesh, or the ego and the spirit, it's there all day. It's not like, okay, pick this, now I'm there. You know, it's always a constant back and forth doors.
And that's exactly how I see superposition, which we're gonna go ahead and, it's still running, I hope? Good. We're gonna go ahead and discontinue that. Thank you everyone for participating.
Thank you very much. This
Thank
was a
you.
Thank you
It was
again.
Great room to be in for
amazing.
this.
It's a wonderful sound.